It's the Half Hour Wasted Legion of Dudes Extended Edition podcast. This is Jordan from Jersey with the Legion of Dudes, and this is what I thought of the comics I read the week of May 12th, 2010. This was kind of a bittersweet week for comics for me. Two series I really rather like ended, and while there are new series I will be latching onto after those that kind of follow in their traditions, it's still kind of sad to see them go, but we'll get to them later on in this review session. First off, from DC, we have Human Target issue number 4. And good news, the word just came out today that Human Target has been picked up for a second season. So if you liked the show or like the comic, there's more to come in the future. Now, I definitely love the show, and I've had a good time with this comic. However, with issue 4, it's kind of becoming a little bit more of the same. It seems to be that next issue will be the last of the arc. It's just one more location he has to go to at the end of this issue. But it's kind of been a little bit repetitive. Luckily, this issue we got to see more of Winston and Guerrero, two of my favorite characters who were kind of mostly absent from the beginning of the story. So it was nice to see them. And hopefully after this next story, they'll go into another arc that's a little less repetitive, something new, something more tied into the show. After the cliffhanger of this first season, I don't know exactly where they'll go. I'm assuming it'll be something that happens beforehand. But yeah, this particular story, it's getting a little bit repetitive, especially because the backup stories from the first 5 issues, I'm assuming 5, again, could be 6, but they also all have a similar theme. So yeah, I like the series. I just hope that the next story is less repetitive, and I know I've said repetitive many times, being repetitive, but I hope it's not that word, and something new, something a bit more just different, just something fun. I mean, this certainly has the tone of the series. I just wish that the next story will be different from this one. Then from Marvel, we have The Amazing Spider-Man, issue 631. This is part 2 of the Shed arc. I know last week I said I love Bacalo's art. Still true. Still 100% true. I really like the way he draws the lizard. It's very cool. However, I will make the note that in this cover image, the lizard looks like Reptar from Rugrats. Make of that what you will. Also, while I'm on the subject of art, this issue unfortunately splits its art between 2 different artists. I like both artists. Bacalo's awesome. This other artist, it reminds me kind of the Black Freighter anime that they did in conjunction with the Watchmen movie that came out last year. So I like both artists. It is still kind of annoying when Marvel and any publisher chooses to split one book into 2 artists. You know, like in Human Target, the artists are very similar. Here, they're very different. They're both good, just very different. And I didn't think that the spot where the artist switched was particularly awesome. It would have been much better if that split had happened about 3 pages sooner. Just saying. Story-wise, I like this issue more than the last one. It still seems to be following the standard lizard story, but I get the impression that they're going to tweak that very soon into something very different. It was nice to see some more of the Kravenoffs, and I believe that the male character in the story is Grim Hunter, I think. I'd have to double check on that. But he's a character I don't think has been around in the comics for like 15 years at least. So it was very interesting to see him show up again. All in all, I really did enjoy this issue. I'm enjoying the arc so far. There's just those little nitpicky things. It's always like, why did you choose to do that? Oh well, what can you do? And to round out this week, we have our 3 Siege issues. Siege, Dark Avengers, the final issue, and the final issue of Avengers the Initiative. So let's start out with Siege issue number 4, the final issue of this event, and the final issue of kind of the overall arc of the Marvel Universe for the last 7.5 years or so. So what wasn't so awesome about the story? Well, it's a bit predictable. There was a nice little twist in the middle, which kind of saw coming, but also kind of didn't. It could have gone the other way. And I think I like where they ended up with there. But for the most part, I could have told you this was how the series was going to end before it even started. That aside, the dialogue's fine. I think it was a necessary issue. This whole Siege event has been very necessary just to get things back to the way they were. Status quo antebellum, if you will. So I understand the necessity of it. I'm happy it's over. I enjoyed Siege, certainly. There just wasn't a whole lot to it. Let's put it that way. The art to this issue was beautiful. So many pages you could have just framed and put up on your wall. That part of the issue I have nothing but good things to say about. The art. Then we have Dark Avengers issue 16, the final issue of Dark Avengers. This is another book that had incredible art. There were several panels in this book where I went, oh, that is really something to look at. Very cool stuff. Also, despite having a bit of a fractured narrative, just a bit, this issue had, in my opinion anyway, a lot more emotional resonance than did Siege proper. We get to find out what happens to every character of the Dark Avengers. I think there might have been one that we don't. I missed that if that was the case. Some of them expected, some of them maybe not so as expected, but not by a huge margin. And the coda with Norman Osborn, very, very cool. And there's a nice letter at the end of the issue from Bendis, which I thought was very awesome, and reveals a stunning bit of information about Norman Osborn. I won't say what it is here, but I did post it on my Twitter if you want to check that. And finally this week we have Avengers The Initiative issue 35, once again the final issue of the series, and I really do like them planting the Avengers flag right there on the cover. This issue was an excellent ending to an excellent series. It's a shame to see it go. I understand why it does, and I'll certainly be picking up Avengers Academy next month, which it seems to be the at least spiritual successor, if not actual successor, to this series. I love the ending, the actual final page of this issue, being as Avengers The Initiative is very much a school story. It's a story about a school for superheroes. The way they chose to end the issue, very appropriate. And just like Dark Avengers, I thought there was a lot more emotion and substance to this issue than there was to Siege itself. I understand it's the event book. It's got to cast a very wide net and include a ton of characters and a ton of storylines. And even with that said, though, Avengers The Initiative covers a lot of storylines, and it still was able to make me care a lot more about the characters than Siege proper was. Like I said, Siege itself was a very decent event. Wasn't great, but it was decent. What it really was, these other books where you got the real emotional depth to the overall story. So, Dark Avengers and Avengers The Initiative, I salute you. And let's move on into the Heroic Age with Marvel, and with our other indies and DC books in the weeks to come. This was Jordan from Jersey with the Legion of Dudes. Have a good week. It's the Half Hour Wasted Legion of Dudes Extended Edition podcast.